In December 1978, one of aviation's most incredible stories began to unfold. Jay Prochnow, an airplane salesman from San Francisco, had sold 2 small Cessna's 188 AG wagons to Australia. The sale included delivery of the planes, which meant Jay needed to fly the planes to the other side of the world. Despite the economic downturn, Jay and his partner were determined to make it happen. The journey from San Francisco to Australia is very long, about 12,000 kilometers, approximately 7,500 miles. This means crossing a huge expanse of the Pacific Ocean, full of challenges and dangers. But Jay and his partner were ready to take on this journey. Jay and his partner knew that Cessna's 188 AG wagons were small and had limited flight time. They could only fly for 2 hours before needing to refuel. This was a big problem, as some legs of the journey would require up to 14 hours of continuous flying. To resolve this, they made some modifications. Typically, Cessna's fuel tanks were used to store agricultural spraying chemicals, but for this trip, they filled those extra tanks with fuel, thus increasing the plane's flight time. "Ready for this adventure, Jay?" asked his partner as he checked the instruments. "Ready as ever," Jay replied, with a confident smile, but aware of the challenges ahead. The flight plan involved several strategic stops on islands in the middle of the Pacific Ocean. The first stop would be in Honolulu, Hawaii. Then they would go to Pago Pago, American Samoa, and finally to Norfolk Island before arriving in Australia. To understand better, imagine that you are traveling from one point to another and need to stop several times to refuel, because there are no gas stations along the way. The trip started as planned. The 2 Cessnas flew together side by side, ensuring they could help each other if something went wrong. They crossed the vast expanse of water to Honolulu, then headed to Pago Pago, American Samoa. Until then, everything was going well. However, on December 21st, while taking off from Pago Pago, Jay's partner had an accident. His plane was unable to take off and was destroyed. Jay, with a strong sense of responsibility, helped his partner get off the plane safely. Fortunately, he was not injured. However, this meant that Jay would have to continue the journey alone to Norfolk Island, the last stop before Australia. "If we don't take the plane, we won't make anything. We already spent a lot of money to get here," said Jay's partner, trying to encourage him to continue. The next morning, with the sun rising, Jay took off alone towards the immensity of the blue ocean. He trusted his navigation calculations and the ADF, Automatic Direction Finder, an instrument that helps him find his way by picking up radio signals from stations on the ground. After 14 hours of flying, Jay began receiving signals from the ADF from Norfolk Island and relaxed a little. The ADF works by picking up radio signals and pointing in the direction of the radio station, which helps the pilot find his way. However, after 30 minutes, the island still did not appear on the horizon. Jay began to suspect something was wrong. "Maybe the wind is stronger than I thought," he muttered to himself, adjusting his trajectory. As it continued, the ADF needle began to spin wildly, indicating that it had lost signal. Jay was lost in the middle of the Pacific Ocean, with no idea where Norfolk was. Desperate, he used the HF, high-frequency radio, which is a long-range radio, to send a distress call to Auckland Air Traffic Control. "Mayday, mayday. I'm lost in the middle of the Pacific with no navigation," Jay transmitted, trying to remain calm. Meanwhile, a large Air New Zealand DC-10 plane, piloted by Gordon Vett, had taken off from Fiji, headed for Auckland, New Zealand. Gordon received the news about the missing plane and, showing an incredible sense of humanity, decided to help. He asked his crew and passengers if they were willing to delay their arrival to save the lost pilot. Of course, the passengers responded unanimously, showing inspiring solidarity. Gordon knew exactly where his plane was, thanks to modern navigation systems. He tried to contact Jay, via VHF, very high-frequency radio, but to no avail, which meant the Cessna was more than 200 nautical miles, approximately 370 kilometers, away. Jay, turn your plane's nose toward the sun and tell me what the compass indicates, Gordon instructed over the HF radio. Jay followed instructions and reported that the compass showed 274 degrees. Gordon, checking his own compass, saw 270 degrees, concluding that Jay was south of them, more than 200 miles away. When Gordon asked Jay to point the plane's nose at the sun and read the compass, he was trying to figure out the direction Jay was flying in relation to the DC-10. If Jay's compass showed a different angle than Gordon's, it would mean Jay was flying in a different direction. In this case, Jay was flying at 274 degrees, while Gordon was at 270 degrees. This indicated that Jay was slightly to the south. To determine whether Jay was east or west, Gordon had a brilliant idea. He asked Jay to raise his hand toward the horizon and measure the height of the sun with his fingers. "How many fingers do you see between the horizon and the sun?" Gordon asked. "4 fingers," Jay replied. Gordon took the same measurement and found 2 fingers. This indicated that Jay was west of the DC-10. Using this data, Gordon and an onboard navigator calculated Jay's approximate position, about 240 to 250 miles, approximately 385 to 400 kilometers, to the southwest. This technique involved measuring the height of the sun in the sky. Gordon asked Jay to raise his hand toward the horizon and measure how many fingers were between the horizon and the sun. Jay saw 4 fingers, while Gordon saw 2 fingers. This meant the sun was higher in the sky for Jay, indicating he was further west. With this information, Gordon and the navigator were able to calculate Jay's approximate position relative to the DC-10, which was an impressive feat of navigation and mathematics. As night approached, Jay's situation was becoming desperate. The DC-10 did not leave contrails, those white trails that planes sometimes leave in the sky, due to altitude and temperature. As a last resort, Gordon decided to dump fuel into the air, hoping Jay would see the trail. "We're dumping fuel. See if you can see anything," Gordon said. Unfortunately, Jay was unable to see the trail due to limited visibility from the Cessna's cockpit. With fuel running out and extremely tired, Jay thought about landing in the ocean. "I'm going to land in the water and wait to be found," Jay said, exhausted. "No. Keep flying. We'll find him," Gordon insisted, determined to save Jay. Gordon then used the difference in sunset time to calculate Jay's longitude. When the sun touched the horizon, Jay reported the time, and Norfolk confirmed the 5.6-degree difference in longitude, placing Jay 291 miles, approximately 468 kilometers, east of the island. "Fly northwest, you'll see the island soon," Gordon instructed. Finally, Jay saw lights, but they were from an oil tanker. Reporting the ship's location, Gordon managed to triangulate it and found the Cessna. A New Zealand Coast Guard P-3 also spotted Jay, guiding him to Norfolk. After 23 hours and 5 minutes of flight, Jay landed in Norfolk with the tanks practically dry. Gordon and his crew, with sufficient fuel, continued to Auckland, arriving 4 hours late. No passengers complained. Everyone was happy to have saved a life. Jay Prochnow, saved by an act of selflessness and navigational skill, lived to tell his story. Gordon Vett was honored by McDonnell Douglas for his compassion, judgment, and aerial excellence. The story of courage and solidarity of Gordon and his crew inspired many and was even adapted into the film Mercy Mission. This story is based on real events. Although some dialogue and scenes may have been dramatized for narrative effect, the central events are true and have been documented in historical records and interviews. Olá, evite bugs na exportação.